Shalom, everyone. How are you? How's everybody doing? I see that my computer is trying to do something. Oh, now I think we're live. Shalom, everybody. How are you? So glad that you are here with us today, tonight, wherever you are. I'm now in a different location. My wife is actually working in the office, so I'm here in our dining room, and it's just a little different background. I hope you enjoy it. And I'm very glad that you're with us. I want you to know that last Wednesday night's session of 5 Derech Eretz lessons in the Torah portion, had over 330 views. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and how much I enjoy seeing people's comments. And so, on my format on my laptop here, I can only see about 5 or 6 comments, and I don't know why it doesn't scroll up. So thank you again for joining us tonight and for being part of the group. And I'm going to continue as long as there are people viewing. So that's a good thing. I just want to mention, first of all, that I noticed that when I watch myself in a rerun and the recorded session, I see that I don't exactly look at people in the eye. Now, if I do this when I'm looking at the camera, I think it's more looking at people in the eye, but then I'm looking at camera and it's not that exciting. So if this drives you nuts, if this bothers you that I'm not exactly looking straight into a camera or looking into your eyes, I really apologize. I'm not sure what to do about that. So I want to do a couple of dedications today to our session today of Pirkei Avot. The first is to the loving memory of Aviva Bat Miriam Aviva Mukamal of blessed memory, who, together with our dear husband Ron Mukamal, members of my former congregation, Moses Montefiore Anshe Amuna in Baltimore. She passed away on the 7th of January. It's about 4 months away, 4.5 months, something like that, at the age of 84. She was a beautiful, kind, sweet, loving, smiling person, beautiful character, lovely personality. She and her husband Ron and members of their family always in shul. You could count on them. And for the synagogue and for me and for those who knew and loved Aviva Mukamal, it was a tremendous loss. I also want to mention that tonight I'd like to dedicate this learning session in memory of the late, just a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, the late Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb of blessed memory. His memory should always be for a blessing. The former president of Yeshiva University for, I think, about 27 years. This is incredible. He was only the third president in over 100 years of Yeshiva University. He then became the chancellor of Yeshiva University, retired in 2013, left loving children, children-in-law, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, maybe even more. His dear and devoted wife, Mindala, passed away, I don't know, a month ago. It was a very short time ago. Anyway, Rabbi Lamb and I had many wonderful associations over the years, and maybe at some future time I'd like to talk about Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb and my various associations with him, and talk a little bit about his greatness. So I hope you'll join me for that. So let's jump into tonight's teaching, which is taught by a Rabbi Yehoshua ben Prachya. Now, Prachya is a name that I don't think I've ever heard except for this name in Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Prachya, the son of Prachya, he used to say the following. And I think by now we're kind of used to great sages and rabbis saying statements in threes. Do this, huh? And then blah, blah, blah. And then hamadamanama, that kind of a thing. Here comes another one. Okay? Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya said, interestingly, it doesn't say he used to say, but it says he said, Omer, he said. Here's the three things that he said. Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a rabbi. Uknei lecha chaver, and purchase for yourself, buy yourself, literally, to buy, to purchase for yourself a chaver, a friend. And the third part of the statement, v'hevedan et kol ha'adam lechav zchut, and you should judge every person on the side of merit. So imagine scales, the merits here, the debits here, Judge everybody on the side of merit, that they should all be meritorious in your eyes and in your judgment. So let's talk about these three parts and see how are they Did you hear a horn in beautiful Ephrat outside of Jerusalem here in gorgeous Israel? So what if anything do these three statements have to do with each other? And we'll get to that towards the end of our time together. Hopefully by 9 o'clock here in Israel time, 2 o'clock in American Eastern time. So aseh lecharav, make for yourself a rabbi. This has several connotations. Make for yourself a rabbi. One commentator says, what does it mean to make for yourself a rabbi? You make yourself into a rabbi. You do it. Why does anybody need to be told that? Because if you look around at some of the great sages, like the ones we study about here in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, if you look at some of the great rabbis of the centuries, if you look at so many different people that have held pulpits and have been educators, etc., you will say to yourself, oh my gosh, I don't have that. I don't have their intellect. I don't have their intelligence. I don't have their scholarship. Who am I to become a rabbi? And the bottom line is, it's like a general practitioner, doctor who doesn't have to be a surgeon. You can be trained and educated enough to be a GP. So don't be afraid of being a rabbi just because you don't have all those things that the other great rabbis check off. You make yourself a rabbi. Aseh lecharav. You become a rabbi and don't be intimidated by the towering scholarship of so many other great rabbis and rabbinical leaders that you know. Another commentary says, what does it mean to make for yourself a rabbi? It means find yourself a rabbi with whom you will be comfortable, a rabbi that you can trust, a rabbi that's going to be there for you, a rabbi that's going to be a mentor and not a not a tormentor. There are some rabbis who they really they torment other people with the words that they say or the kind of attention they may lack with some of their congregants. So find yourself somebody, a rabbi who's educated, who's wise, who gives good counsel, somebody who can be a great spiritual guide to you. That would make a really great rabbi, a great spiritual guide. Now, another commentator says, don't find a rabbi for yourself who is going to always just be complimentary, very sweet. Wow, Elon, that's a great job. What a beautiful sermon you gave. Wow, that's really, really nice. Find yourself somebody that you can trust, you have faith in, and somebody who is going to be willing to be nicely critical to you, nicely. Say things that are critical or critiques of you and about you in the nicest way, but still they won't be hesitant to say things to you that might be a little painful, but because you like them and you trust them, you know that it's coming from a warm, good, loving place. So, in general, aseh lecharav, find yourself a rabbi, make yourself a rabbi, you be the rabbi. If you're not, find yourself somebody with whom you can commiserate, somebody who can guide you, a spiritual guide and a spiritual mentor. Even wider than you finding a rabbi is a synagogue needing to find a rabbi. And that is not always easy, believe me. Believe me. I serve 3 congregations, one in Stamford, Connecticut, 2 in Baltimore, Maryland. Finding rabbis is very, very difficult. There are a lot of interviews and a lot of personal contacts, meeting with various groups in the synagogue. But you know something? Every synagogue needs a rabbi. Surprise, if you came to Israel, you would find out that many congregations all over the country just simply have no rabbi. Now, why is that? It could be finances. It could be other things. Could be the great rabbis of the community have no time to become a synagogue rabbi. Or it could mean that there are a lot of other educated people in the congregation to whom people can turn for various questions or guidance. So not every synagogue in Israel has a rabbi, which when I first found that out was very unusual when we made Aliyah. to go to synagogues that don't have a rav. They just don't have a rabbi. And again, it could be for various things. If you go to Europe, I think many, maybe most, Jewish communities in Europe have a chief rabbi. Besides rabbis of various congregations, there's a chief rabbi of Poland, there's a chief rabbi of this European community and that community. Israel has two chief rabbis, one milchig and one a dairy and a meat rabbi. There are two rabbis in Israel, chief rabbis, Ashkenazi and a Sephardi. Some people say there should only be one chief rabbi in Israel that can handle both the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi communities. And you guessed it, there are some people who say that Israel should have no chief rabbi and will get along very nicely without a chief rabbi. That's a whole other to-do, maybe for some other time. Interestingly enough, America has no chief rabbi. Now, New York has the largest Jewish population, I think, of all the Jewish populations in America. Even New York does not have a chief rabbi. And why is that? I don't know. I'm not prepared to answer that question. It just seems to me always to be kind of an enigma. There's so many chief rabbis all across the world. So you would say, listen, the Jewish population in America is what, 5 million? They need a chief rabbi? Well, there's about 7 million Jews in Israel, and we need two of them. So maybe America should have a chief rabbi, but I don't know how anybody listening today or tonight feels about a chief rabbi for America. If you have something to say about it, please feel free to leave me a message. Another teaching about make yourself a rabbi is to not shop around. Once you've found a rabbi who is going to be able to answer all of your questions, spiritual, Jewish law, other kinds of situations, how to deal with situations. Once you found a rabbi, the teaching is don't shop around for other rabbis. Meaning, hey, I know a rabbi about 3 blocks away who's very lenient in the kosher questions. I'll go to him for kosher questions. I know another rabbi across town who's very lenient when it comes to Shabbat issues. I'll go to that rabbi for my Shabbat issues. There's another rabbi about 5-6 miles away who is really, really lenient in terms of how to celebrate Jewish holidays. I'll go to that rabbi for questions about the Jewish holidays. What does the teaching of Jewish tradition say? No, once you found a rabbi, stick with the rabbi, know him better or her better, let them know you better, and through all of that, they will know what way to answer all of your questions. They will sense if you need something lenient, and they will find it for you. But once you found your rabbi, don't shop around, stick with one person. Talk to other rabbis, no problem. But if you're going to go for a ruling on any Jewish issue, stick with your one main rabbi. So now we go to the next part of this teaching of Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya, who says, Ukenei lecha chaver, buy for yourself a friend. You know, every time I read that, I did not understand, what does it mean to buy a friend? Well, like rent a chaver for the next 24 hours for what, 100 shekels, $100? Does that buy yourself a friend? I used to think to myself, how pathetic is that you need to buy friendship? Well, there is a teaching in Judaism that says that a friend, either give me a friend, somebody says in the Talmud, or give me death. Give me a friend or give me death. I cannot stand being by myself. I cannot stand this existential loneliness. So I need a friend. What does the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot teach? If you need a friend and it doesn't come easily, buy it. Go buy a friend. Pay somebody to be your friend. What's the bigger picture of this buy yourself a friend? I saw a beautiful commentary and it said, you know why the Mishnah, the teaching, uses the word to buy or purchase a friend? Because if you wanted to buy or purchase something, a piece of jewelry, an appliance, a car, a house, whatever, if you wanted to purchase something very, very costly, very expensive, you would spend quite a long time investing on finding the best of that category. You wanted to find a beautiful bracelet, You're going to search around. It's going to be a heavy investment of time for you to find exactly the right kind of a bracelet, exactly the right kind of a car, exactly the right kind of a refrigerator, washing machine, whatever it is. That same level of investment that you would use when you're buying or purchasing something valuable, use that same level of investment when you find a friend. Same level. That's how important having a friend is. A friend, somebody who's trustworthy, a confidant, a secret keeper. The commentaries say, find yourself a spiritual friend. In Hebrew, we call it a chavruta, chaver, a learning partner, somebody with whom you can study Jewish texts, even English texts about Judaism. Somebody that is a good fit, is a good match for you. You're both kind of on the same level, or maybe one of you is a little bit more scholarly, but somebody that you can study with. And by the way, when you find the right study partner, it really is fabulous because you don't only study what is in front of you, but you also talk about each other's lives. How are you doing? How are things in your family? You gain insight from how each of you deals with various situations in the family, in the business, in the workplace, in the neighborhood, whatever. So, K'nei L'cha Chaver, buy yourself, purchase for yourself a friend, somebody that will push you and you will push them to greater spiritual growth. Somebody who will congratulate you for understanding what it is that you're studying. Somebody wants your success as much as they want their success in what is being studied. Somebody who won't be jealous of you if you go a little bit ahead of them and grasp things a little bit easier. They won't be jealous. If they're going to be jealous, may not be the best kind of a friend. Somebody's going to be a cheerleader for you, whatever you accomplish in study, in learning, in life, in your job, in your home. Somebody who will rah-rah you. That makes a really, really good friend. You know, you know this. I'm sure you know this, that in our age, many people on Facebook, where you're watching this, have tons of friends, tons. So I'll say from a personal point of view, I think the last time I checked on Facebook, I have 1,800 friends. Thank God I'm not inviting them all to a party. Okay. Do I know them all very well? I have to admit, I don't. Some I know by association with another friend who I do know. They recommended a friend. Okay, I'm going to be a friend until it proves not to be a good idea. Sometimes you gain a friend on Facebook, you accept a friend, and it's not the best thing. And then we unfriend. What can you do? The reason I mention this is because, so I have 1,800 friends on Facebook, right? Thank you for the confetti. I appreciate the parade. Many of you have more and many of you have less. Why do I mention this? Because in Efrat, I live in a building of 17 families. We're one of 17 families. We're apartment number 17, sixth floor, a penthouse apartment. Wow, wow, beautiful views. Great. There are 16 other families in our building. Do I know them all? No. I'm not proud of it. I'm just honest with you. I don't know them all. So here I have 1,800 Facebook friends, and most of the people in our building, I don't know who they are. I'm not saying this is a great situation because it's not, but it could be the same wherever you live. You have tons of friends on Facebook. Do you know your neighbor? Do you know people 3 houses down, 3 buildings down? And that's the kind of a world we live in today. We live in a very mobile kind of world. We pick up and go somewhere else for a job. We move. I think I have moved in my life about 20 times. 20 times I think I've moved, give or take 1 or 2 times. Am I the average? I don't know. I don't know. But in a time where people tend to move and be mobile for various reasons, how valuable is this lesson? K'nei l'cha chaver. Anchor for yourself, with yourself, a solid, honest to goodness friend. Some commentaries say, it's interesting. Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachya doesn't say, acquire yourself friends, like plural. Excuse me. He doesn't say that. Acquire for yourself friends. Why does he stick with one friend? So my guess is you can probably, pardon me, you can probably answer that question yourself. The more friends you have, it's likely the more superficial those many friendships will be. Not necessarily, I'm just saying likely. But if you found that good, solid friend, Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya says you have found a treasure. To find one solid, trustworthy, secret keeping, cheerleading friend. If you found that, you have found the world. And I think he's right. I think he's right. So I'm now looking at the time. We have about 9 minutes left. And now we come to the third part of the teaching. We already had make for yourself a rabbi. Very important. We just learned purchase for yourself a friend. Acquire a friend. And now part number 3. Ve'hevedan et kol ha'adam l'chav zchut, which means literally judge every person on the side of merit. Judge every person favorably. You know, every person is a mixed bag. There's some good, there's some not so good. There's some fantastic about people, there's some not so fantastic. There's some wow about people, and there's some oy vey about people. We're just mixed bags. That's the way God created us. So judge all people on the side of merit. Give people the benefit of the doubt when you judge them. By the way, are we supposed to judge people? In the best of all worlds, we're not supposed to judge anybody. We should judge ourselves. But to judge other people, our tradition is not very keen on judging other people. So what's this teaching? Where did that come from? Judge this way and not that way. I think Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya and others understand that we're only human and we tend to be judgmental. But here's a great lesson. If you're going to be judgmental about people, judge on the side of merit. Give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to mention a book. I don't read a whole lot of books. I just finished a great book. It's another time. There's a great book called The Other Side of the Story. It's a greenish cover written by a woman named Yehudis Samet, S-A-M-E-T. The Other Side of the Story. It's got about, I don't know, 60, 70 scenarios where the scenario leads you to believe that this person or that person is clearly the one to blame, the guilty party, the one that everybody is ratting about. And there's no other way about it. This is the person who is at fault. This is the person who is at blame for however the scenario peters out. And then you look at what Yehuda Samet, the author, has written, and she tells you how, if you thought that was the person who was wrong, you are absolutely wrong. Because here's what happened. But we just saw one side of the story, and that's the name of her book, The Other Side of the Story. The real truth, the truth about what really happened. But we only see one side, and we're quick to judge about that one side that we see or that we know. So it's very, very important, says Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, v'hevedan et kol ha'adam l'chav zchut, to be able to judge every person favorably on the side of merit. So, interestingly enough, in our tradition, we have a few references to scales. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year and the Day of Atonement, we are told that all of our actions, words, deeds, behaviors go on a scale before the heavenly court. And let's see which side of the scale is heavier, the good side, the bad side. So scales are a very important imagery during the high holiday period. Maimonides, Rambam, lived from 1135 to 1204, not even 30 minutes. Amazing what he did in those few minutes. Maimonides says, before you do or say anything next, imagine for yourself that the scale of the universe is equally balanced to the credit and to the debit. And whatever you say next or whatever you do next will tip the scale of the universe in one or the other direction. So be careful about what you do and what you say next. It'll tip the scales of the universe in one direction or the other. And of course, we want to tip it in the scale of positivity and judging of the entire universe in a very positive way. So these are just a couple of examples of scales within the Jewish tradition. We talked about the book, The Other Side of the Story. And now, with our closing couple of minutes, here's another way to look at the statement by Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, "V'hevedan et kol ha'adam lechavzut," not just to judge every person to the side of merit, but also judge the entirety of the person to the side of merit. Judge their composite to the side of merit. Okay, they did some things you didn't like. It was wrong. It was hurtful. It was whatever. Do they have positive aspects? Did they do positive things? And if the answer is they did more positive than negative, that is a way of judging somebody in their entirety, in their composite. And that's another way of viewing Rabbi Yehoshua ben Prachya's great lesson. Not just judge everyone favorably, but judge the person's entirety favorably. Unless the entirety of the person is not good. If they're not good and there's hardly anything to their credit, it's hard to judge them favorably. But in general, most people, as I say, are a composite. Most people have good things, not the best things, but most people, I think, I hope, are good. Most people are good by their nature. So, wrapping up this teaching, make for yourself a rabbi, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge everybody favorably, or judge people in their entirety, in their composite, judge them favorably. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Prachya here has given us a valuable teaching on how we relate to three groups of people. Those people who are greater than us in scholarship, spirituality, etc. If they're greater than us, choose one of them as your rabbi. Those people who we feel are equal to us in various ways, choose one of them as the friend. Choose one of them as the friend. And those people that you feel, I don't like this part, but those people that you feel are not on your par, they're not on your level, judge them favorably. And then maybe you'll feel about them in a very different way. Last thing I want to say about this is one great commentator says, the first two parts of this teaching teach us a very lovely lesson. The first two parts, make for yourself a rabbi, acquire for yourself a friend. This commentary says, if you have found the right rabbi, you have acquired for yourself a friend. If you found the right rabbi, that person will also end up being your friend. Personally, I like that teaching. I wonder if you feel that teaching resonates with you. I'll just say in closing, let's say you found a really excellent rabbi, you revere, you admire, etc., and they invite you to go fishing, like a friend would. Let's go fishing. Wow, is that a good idea? Maybe it is. Get yourself a rabbi, acquire a friend. On the other hand, maybe it's a little too chummy. Maybe you want to keep that rabbi on a pedestal and not sit with that rabbi when he worms a hook or says a few choice things when they don't get any fish on that fishing trip or whatever. I'd be interested to know what you think. Get yourself a rabbi, acquire a friend. It really sounds lovely. That rabbi could be a fabulous friend. I'm interested in your thoughts. Dear friends, thank you so much for joining me today here on Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers. God willing, we'll see you Wednesday for 5 Derech Eretz lessons in the Torah portion. And as I said last week, between Israel and the rest of the world, for several Shabbatot now, we're going to be on a different schedule. We'll be off by one Torah portion. So I'll have to figure out how I'm going to make relevant teachings from both Torah portions, the one here in Israel and the one that's going to be read in all other places in the world. Thank you again so much. In loving memory of Aviva Mukamal, of Moses Montefiore Anshe Amuna in Baltimore, in loving memory of the late and great Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb of blessed memory. Have yourselves a wonderful day, a good night, and a fabulous week. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care now. Bye bye.